name is Keisha Wallace, and I'm with Ace Wall Scholars. Today we will be learning solving multi-step equations. So let's begin. We will be covering the following lesson goals. The first goal is solving multi-step equations using the distributive property. And our second goal is solving multi-step equations with variables on both sides of the equation. So let's begin. As a review, what is an equation? Well, an equation is a mathematical statement that sets two expressions equal to each other. To solve multi-step equations, each expression located on either side of the equal sign needs to be simplified before we solve for the variable. So let's look at an example. First, we will look at multi-step equations using the distributive property. Okay, so let's say we have -2 times the quantity x plus 5 equals 23. What's the first thing we want to do? We want to distribute that -2 into the parentheses. So we're going to multiply that -2 by the x and the 5 that are within the parentheses. That will give us -2x plus a -10 equals 23. Now, because that 10 is negative, we don't need to write that plus there. We could rewrite it as just -2x minus 10 equals 23. Now we can isolate our variable. And how do we do that? Well, we're going to bring that -10 to the other side of the equal sign. And we do that by doing the opposite. So since it's a -10, we're going to add 10 on both sides of the equal sign. The 10s on the left side will cancel out. And we are left with -2x equals 33. From there, we can solve for our x, and we can do that by dividing both sides by -2. Our final answer will be x equals -33 divided by 2, or you could say -33 halves. If you want to write that in decimal form, it's perfectly fine too. Let's look at example 2. We have -8 plus 5 equals -x plus 5. Now we notice the x plus 5 is within the parentheses. Before we combine our -8 and our 5, we want to distribute that minus sign within the parentheses. Now that minus sign is the same as a -1 being on the outside of the parentheses. So when we multiply it through, we end up getting -x minus 5. So our equation now reads -8 plus 5 equals -x plus a -5. Now we don't need to keep that plus there, so we can rewrite it as -8 plus 5 equals -x minus 5. All right, from here, we can simplify the left side of the equation by adding the two constants together. Our constants are -8 and plus 5. When we add those together, we get a -3. So now we have -3 equals -x minus 5. Now it's time to isolate our variable, which means to get it by itself. So we're going to add 5 to both sides of the equation. Our 5's cancel out, and now we have 2 equals -x. We're not done here because we have that -x in front of our variable, which is the same as saying there's a -1 in front of our variable. So to get our x by itself, we're going to divide out by -1 on both sides. Our answer is x equals -2, or you could say -2 equals x. Now, let's look at an example where we have more than one variable. All right, so this particular equation is -4x minus 6x equals 20. The first thing I want to do is combine my variables. So what's -4x minus 6x? -10x. So now we have -10x equals 20. Now it's time to isolate our variable, which means get it by itself. So that -10 needs to be taken to the other side of the equation, so we're going to divide out by -10 on both sides. The -10's cancel out, and we're left with x equals -2. Now we are going to look at an example where we have variables on both sides of the equation. So our equation is negative 4n minus 10 equals 2n plus 8. We need to get our variables on one side of the equation. Now to do that, we can move our 2n to the left side or negative 4n to the right side. It doesn't really matter. I am going to move my 2n to the other side of the equation. So to do that, I'm going to minus 2n on both sides. The 2n's, the positive 2n and the negative 2n on the right side cancel out, and I'm left with negative 6n minus 10 equals 8. From here, I want to move my negative 10 to the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to bring my constants together. And I do that by taking my minus 10 to the other side. So I'm going to add 10 on both sides because my constants were the negative 10 and the 8. The negative 10 and positive 10 cancel out, and I'm left with negative 6n equals 18. From there, I can divide out by negative 6 on both sides, and I get n is equal to negative 3. All right, now let's look at our last example where we will be combining the distributive property as well as having variables on both sides of the equation. So in this particular equation, we have negative 3 times the quantity of s plus 5 equals a negative 5s minus 8. Now let's remember that negative that's in front of the parentheses where we have our 5s minus 8, that's the same as having a negative 1 in front of the parentheses. So just let's remember that when we're solving. First, I want to distribute that negative 3 into the parentheses that's on the left side. So that's going to give me negative 3s minus 15 because negative 3 times s is negative 3s, and negative 3 times a positive 5 would give us a negative 15. Now, on our right side, we still have that negative 1 that's in front of the parentheses. We're going to distribute that in, and that will give us negative 5s plus 8. So the total equation should read negative 3s minus 15 equals negative 5s plus 8. From here, I'm going to bring my constants together. Now, if you decided to bring your variables together first, that's fine, but I'm going to bring my constants together. My constants are the negative 15 and the 8. So I'm going to move my negative 15 to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to add 15 on both sides. And that gives me negative 3s equals negative 5s plus 23 because 8 plus 15 is 23. Now I can combine my variables. So I'm going to add 5s to both sides of the equation. And the reason why I chose my minus 5s to move is because the whole point of solving an equation is to get our variables to one side and our constants to one side. So I needed to move my negative 5s to the other side of the equation. From there, I have 2s equals 23. I divide out by 2 on both sides, and my answer is s equals 23 divided by 2. Thank you so much for letting me teach you this concept of solving multi-step equations. Again, my name is Keisha Wallace. I'm with ACEWAL Scholars. For more information on our services, please visit us at www.acewalscholars.org. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have fun learning.